Thank you so much, Nicole, for being here on the podcast. It's so great to see you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to chat.
I'm so excited to chat with you. Truth be told, I think I developed a business girl crush on you in 2020 when I first met you on the BBD Live stage.
Oh my gosh, that's a first for me. I
And
think hearing that.
I was like, who is this woman? And it's actually really sort of contradictory because at the same time, I don't know if you know this about me, but I really heavily pick up on people's presence and where they're at. And I could detect that something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And so it was really incredible to watch then what unfolded for you in your business from that point forward.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like this is your podcast, but I'm like, well, say more about that. Maybe we'll
Well,
talk about that a different time.
well, let's start off with who you are, what you do for those that are not aware of you, and maybe where you were back when I met you in 2020 to where you are today.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to there, but I'll reverse a little bit and I'll start off right now. I'm the founder of Elevate, and we help CEOs really scale their businesses online and have the business that they have always dreamed of. And and I'm kind of going off of my usual like elevator pitch, but something that we're really passionate about at Elevate is helping people design businesses that work with their life and not the other way around. I have never wanted to grow to sacrifice my family. Like the money was never worth it to me to have to sacrifice my family. So we had to figure out how we're going to play our own business game and how we're going to work within the hours that we have, no matter how old our kids are, and be able to help as many people as we want to help. I started a long time ago in 2011 doing a very different business in the food and health industry, and basically started exactly in that space. And through the past 12 years, have taken a lot of windy turns to get here. And really, because of where I started, it allowed me to get here. So when we started in the food and health and wellness space, we had a food product. I was doing health coaching, and that allowed us to learn every single thing we know about building an email list and launching products and working with your local community and getting people who never heard of you before to buy on the internet. And that's really where we started. And I'll go wherever you want to go, but in 2016, people started asking like, well, how are you running Facebook ads? How did you learn how to do this? And that really started kind of the next branch and the next iteration of our company, one that was way less physical work and way more profitable. And we've had a few different programs. We've had a Facebook ads agency, but now like we've settled in Elevate for the past 2 years, and doing one thing for 2 years, we have learned a lot of lessons and had a lot of growth.
Amazing. Yeah, it actually was 2 years ago. It wasn't 2020, it was 2021. That's when we had BBD Live.
2021, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does that make more sense now?
Yeah, because 2020, I was like, oh, 2020 was a messy year for us. I don't know what I was doing that year. Personally, professionally, everything was like that was a very unstable year.
Mm.
2021, I started to find our footing again and find the grounding that probably was a big point. Not probably, that 2021, like we started Elevate in October 2021, and that's really when like things started to flip around again.
Yeah, and that's when I noticed because I started following you after BBD Live
Mm-hmm.
and you did a talk about I think mindset. I can't remember
Yes.
specifically
Yep.
what it was, but it was on mindset. And I remember watching that and just feeling like it's so weird because I didn't know you. Like that was a first
Yeah.
introduction, but I just knew that there was like something missing, like there was something more for you. And I couldn't quite figure out what it was. And then we were on the podcast panel again. I'm like, there's that Nicole person again. And look, she's here with me. And I could still feel like this energy was like slightly off and I couldn't put my finger on it, but I thought she's so cool. She clearly knows what she's doing when it comes to business. So I started following you and I noticed because that's when the pivot started to happen. I noticed that shift happen and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. I started watching on your turtle walks. I liked what you were saying. And I think I was just sort of like in the background, as probably many people are in your world, maybe before they decide to book a call and apply into your program. And then it was, what was it, like January, February of this year, you texted me out of the
Oh,
blue.
yes. Yes, I forgot about that too.
And, it was so great because it also rejigged my memory about what you do as well. And you said something to the fact of, hey, do you work with non actors by any chance? And I'm like, yeah, actually, I do. And you're like, it's not for me, it's for my husband. And I'm like, yes, of course. And that was great because I got a real good behind the scenes of what
Mhm.
Elevate is all about and what you all do and how much dedication and action and care that you have for your team, for your clients, for the business. And it was really beautiful to see in such a short period of time what had occurred. And I'm curious, what was the shift for you in those couple of years?
Oh my gosh. It's so funny on while we're in it, right? It's like those baby years with your kids where you're like every day is so long, but all of a sudden they're 11 and you're like they're in middle school and you're just like crying and they're fine and you're crying because it went so fast. I feel like it's the same thing in business. You're like in this short time, and I'm like, I've been doing this since 2011. This has not been a short time. But it unfold once we kind of got over the hump, it unfolded quickly. But man, those days are long and those years are short. So just every entrepreneur out there probably can relate to that, where other people are like, oh, it seems like you grew so quickly, and you're like, I've been here for over a decade. It hasn't been so quick, but I kept showing up. What changed? I think, a lot of burning down. So that's the first thing, is like being willing to pivot, is knowing when to pivot and knowing when to plant your feet and water the seeds. Because we pivoted a lot from I'll say 2018 to 2020. So from 2011 to 2018, we did a lot of the same things. Like we had our food business. We grew that pretty steadily. We did some online summits, we did some consulting. And then in 2018, that's really when we started to get more into like the online program, the online course space, doing some masterminds where we held masterminds. And I was trying to find my footing from like 2018 to really 2021 in the online world. Dan had a Facebook ads agency that I kind of like even though I was always the face of the business, I didn't do that much. Like I would consult marketing wise basically for Facebook ads, but he really was doing all of the work. But we had a membership in 2018, 2019, and at the end of 2019, I was like super burned out. I was so overwhelmed. I was just in that like lighter fret lighter fright. Is that right? Flight or fright?
Oh my gosh, Nicole, I always forget
What?
and I ask people too.
Okay,
I
so
think
that
it's flight or fright.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, if it's not, someone will correct us. Freeze mode. And I was just like literally December 2019. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want this membership. Had it was like over delivering so much for like $40 a month. Like
Oh my gosh, I can so
oh,
relate.
it
That's
was
what I
just,
just did with my actors group.
oh, shut it
Yeah,
down.
I just shut it down. Well, it's
Yeah.
shutting down at the end of December,
Yeah.
but I basically have to say goodbye. We're wrapping it up, and it was over
Yeah.
delivering. It started $49 a month, and
Yeah.
same feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have said this multiple times. We shut it down horribly. We were like, I basically was like, hey, we're shutting this down. If you want to still work with us, we're basically like 10 timesing our price. So like, bye. That was essentially it. And funny enough, I did have a handful of people who were like, yes, like I will stay with you. And they're still with us, which is amazing. But I just couldn't do it anymore. And then in 2020, that's really when we had so like my husband's father died. My
Mm.
mom went through breast cancer treatment. It was, you know what, in the world. And my kids were home all the time. And I was just like, I don't know what I'm meant to be doing. I have to figure this out. I need space. So Dan just built up his Facebook ads agency, and like thank goodness for that, because we were still, if you look at our business on paper, like on a revenue point, we still made more money that year. So on a revenue point, you'd be like, "Oh, things were good. Things were fine. They were doing well." But I was like super disaster that year. It was not that I was all over the place. But then finally in 2021, I started to be like, okay, I think I can get back to it. We launched a course called the Quantum Launch. And funny enough, Katie Soy and I were just having this conversation because it was all the same principles that we teach now inside Elevate in the 7 to 7 formula, but our marketing was all around mindset and not
Mm.
around strategy. And finally in 2021, we went through this long bout of like just doing calls with people. And just like this was finally when I had my energy back, where I felt like I'm ready to go. So we just did all these calls with people and figured out what was the thing people actually wanted and would pay for. And that's truly how we developed the start of the marketing, because we always had the programming on the back end. With the strategy and what we've built since 2011, but we always kind of faltered with the marketing part of it.
Mm. Wow. So many parallels to your story, to what I
Mm,
experienced as well. And maybe that's why, like, I clicked with you. I just didn't know
maybe.
why, but I knew
Yeah.
there was like some sort of synchronicity or something going
Mm-hmm.
on. And that's fascinating. So I love the fact that you said burn it all down, because I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I experienced as well, is when you're trying to pivot, because I've been a 3 year pivoter. Like I've kind
Yeah.
of gone back and forth and doubted, should I, shouldn't I? Is this a pivot? Similar yet different to what you did. But when you're figuring out when is that right time to pivot, what is that right product for you to pivot to? When what was that moment for you where you said, this is it, like now I'm officially in alignment?
I remember in September 2021, and I'll just say this and then see if that like sparks anything, because I think it's going to be different for every single person.
Yeah.
Everyone's business journey, of course, is different. But I got to the point where I think probably similar to you and similar to so many people, like so many of my clients inside Elevate, so many of the people who are in our circles, we're so good at what we do. And it's so frustrating feeling like I know I get people results. I know once people are on the inside that they get results. Our clients stay with us literally for years. Yet I always felt like I didn't know what to say to get more people, like the volume of people in that I
Mm,
felt I was able to help. Does that make sense? So
totally.
you're like, I'm such an expert. I'm so good. And I know I say that humbly, of course, but I think that people can relate to this. And I know that you are the same way with what you do. Like we're good. We're good at what we do. We have a lot of years experience. We're at a level of expertise. We've taken the certifications, all of the things to put in the time, yet the sales are slow to come because it's something, probably a mix of energy and words. Like that's it's a little strategy, it's a little messaging, it's a little energy.
Mm.
And I remember in September just being like, I'm I'm kind of done being like the behind the scenes person. Like
Mm,
I'm done being this like really great marketing secret. So like let's figure it out. And what I realized was I was so afraid of being salesy that I was unwilling to say things that were going to get people to buy faster.
mm,
I was unwilling to like use the marketing tactics almost because I was so afraid of like being unethical, or I was so afraid of like, I don't know, almost like hurting someone. And in
mhm,
September, I was just like, I know we have something good that can help people. So I'm kind of done holding myself back.
mm. So you were able to, I guess, in a sense, reframe for yourself the act of selling so that you could embrace it instead of fight it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that makes a lot of sense because you are a very good salesperson. You're a great marketer. You've really embraced it and you do it in an authentic way, but you really hold people accountable and just get to the point. And I love
Yeah.
that about it. I think it's great and it's refreshing in today's industry and marketplace that I think people are dancing around it quite a lot and they are afraid to be salesy, sleazy, markety, and you get all of these strategies and tactics and I think it's hard not to come off that way because of the nature of what you're expected to do, expected to say, the order of events. You know, if you're in a webinar and it's talk, 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 pivot to the pitch, people
Mm-hmm.
really struggle with that, talking about their program and their offer and embracing it and loving it. So I love that. Um, let's talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about something that you said in the beginning about balancing business and life,
Mm.
because I think that's so very important. And I know other people talk about it, but I don't think to the degree that you do. It's such a high standard that you hold for yourself, for your business, and I think for your clients as well. Did that also evolve out of the circumstances that you're experiencing in the pivot with over delivering and then saying, okay, if I'm going to burn this all down and I'm going to start over, this is what I want.
So the work life, the work kids, the work parent, whatever you want to call it, that was always there for me.
Mm,
I because I always was the type of person, even when I was teaching, I didn't let my personal and my work life bleed into each other. And I mean, that's why I'm not teaching anymore, to be honest. I never took work home when I was teaching. I never worked on the weekends. I never worked on vacation. I just didn't. So when I started my business, I was like, I don't care that it's my business. I'm not going to start doing those things now. I
mm,
need a break. So when we had kids, it was definitely, I still like upheld that of just like, okay, well, if Olivia's napping, then I'm going to work then. And of course, I still worked like sometimes when she was like playing or something as she got older. And when she was a baby, she was sleeping. So I would work, I would work then. But no, I never sacrificed the time with them. I never worked. I can honestly say if I have worked on a weekend, I don't I don't know. I don't ever think I have worked on a weekend. On a
mm,
vacation, sure. I've worked on a vacation, but on a weekend, no. I shut the computer. I do not look at it because that's like my productivity comes from my rest. That is part of my work day is to take time off. So I had this moment where a few years ago when I was in the room with really high performing people who are making way over the amount of money at the time. I think at the time we were probably in the 3 or 400s for the year, and I was in the room with people who are making seven figures, multiple seven figures, and they were opening up and they were talking. And it was person after person who was like, I haven't taken a day off in 30 days. I haven't taken a
mm.
day off in months. I haven't done this. I'm over delivering and working all these hours. And I sat there and I was like, I have never done that And if it takes me 5 times longer to get to the revenue I want to be at, and I do it my way, I am fine with it. And that literally was like a pivotal moment where I'm like, I have something different here. If it takes me longer to hit 7 figures, that is fine. I am okay with it because I'm doing it on my timeline at my pace. I'm picking up my kids from school. I'm with them on vacation. I'm taking them when we travel. I'm good with it.
That's great. And that makes sense with the teaching background that you had such a strong foundation for boundaries with your work and were able to transition that into the online space. So let's talk about Elevate and this, I don't know, this like secret magic that I think that you have where you what is it about this program that just puts people into action and we seem to get results and things happen fast? What is it that you do that you think maybe separates you in the space?
You know, that's a good question. Again, it's like the secret to someone else said that to me. I'm like, the secret society. I'm like, can we not be a secret? I don't want to be a secret anymore. Like, tell people about it. But well, I think the number one thing is when you said before about just like the being so direct, I am only so direct right now because I wasn't for so long and I stumbled
Yeah.
over my words for so long. And I talked about things that no one cared about for so long. And the funny part is, if you know me in person, I'm Italian and I come from New York, and I will live up to all of the stereotypes that come with those two things of just like, I am a super direct person. Yet when it came to marketing, I would like bumble over my words and talk around everything. And I just kind of like went back to my roots of who I really am, and finally was willing to say what I needed to say to speak to the people who are ready to hear me. And I think that's honestly like, there's a lot of magic inside of the program, but the very simple magic comes from helping people figure out what is going to get their audience to listen.
Mm.
And the people who come to us, like the level of expertise that they're at, where we're like, usually it's like one conversation and I'm like, you're who are you speaking to? Like, just say this, just say this. And they're like, oh, it can be that easy. Yes, it can be. It can be that easy. So a lot of the magic really is just, instead of adding things, we take away and we
Mm.
we lose the complication that so many of us have added over the years, just like piling on more and more. And we're like, no, no, no. Do less and less and less. Less is better. And I think that's what starts the simple magic. And then the other part of the magic is it's not just me. Like, and that was my vision for the
Mm.
program. And it's not just me. I don't have all of the answers for you. I don't know everything. So that's why we have brought in a team. And before we had the team, that's why Dan and I are such a good match, because two minds are better than one. And now with all of our advisors, all of our minds are better than just one. And we all care. Like, we I think some people think we're joking when I say, no, we meet every Tuesday and we literally talk about all of you. And it's true. It is true.
Mm. And the clients can definitely feel that. You know, our relationship is probably slightly different to, well, there's a couple. I think there's one other person who's over on this side of the world as me in Australia, isn't there?
There's
There's
a
a
few
few. You
people
know?
in Australia. You all obviously have the time zone thing, so you tend to be quieter than
Yes. We're
the rest
sleeping.
of us. Yes, you're sleeping. It's
That's why
true.
we're sleeping. But a true testament to the program is that even though we're not able to get live on the majority of the calls because we're sleeping, the strategy, the foundations are so good that you can still get results. And in fact, uh, it's, like I said, I can resonate so much with your journey of, when you're pivoting and you're still trying to find your footing and your messaging, it can be quite a struggle and quite clunky. And it was in your program that I finally had the courage, A, to pivot, but also B, to find my messaging and start removing what I didn't need. And my track record now is so good. When I started doing brainstorms and people started showing up and I started communicating with them with strategies and tools and techniques that I learned from you and Dan, I never had to say, "Do you want to hear about my offer?" Every single time they asked, "What do you got?"
Mm-hmm.
Even
Tell me
before.
more. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so good. And that, I mean, that is the goal, is like, you are so good. You are so good, but so many people are just, I mean, you would be the best person to talk about this, but so many people just cover up what they're doing with so many words and masks. And it's almost like, stop pretending that you're not as good as you are and just be more direct with people and show them how good you are, because they need you.
Yeah. Why do you think it's so important to be the CEO of your business? Because I think a lot of us know that ultimately as an expert, we've got this great knowledge, but that building a business is so much more. So how do people identify now's the time to really step into that CEO role, and what are some of those like first steps to get there, to stop doing all of the things?
Yeah. Well, your business, so this is, it's, I feel like we're doing a lot of circling back, which is always good. But the first talk that I did at BBD Live in 2021, which literally people still ask me about every week. This week, someone just asked me about that talk, and it is so relevant still, because your business is a separate entity from you, and we have these, many of us have these personal brands, and I'm like doing everything I can to separate myself and not be a personal brand anymore, and really go from like personal brand to company. But when we have these personal brands, we do see our business as us. But if you want to have a business, it's not you. It's not. You're a human. Your business is a separate entity from you. And your business needs someone to steer the ship. Your business needs someone to drive the bus. And if you think about your business as the separate entity, and we'll use the analogy of the bus, you have the team on the back of the bus, right? You have the content creator, you have the marketer, you have the sales team, you have the client success manager, you have the assistant, you have the team, but you are the team. You are all of those things. And a lot of people just run their business like that. Like they're the team, but the bus is on the highway with no one driving the bus. And that's where the problems come in. Someone has to be driving the bus. And probably you can agree that a bus driver is probably more important than the roles on the back of the bus, because they're driving the bus. But a lot of times, and I did this for a long time, is I just sat at the back of the bus and just switched from like, oh, okay, I'm social media manager. Oh, I'm customer service person. Oh, I better go get on my webinar and be the salesperson now. Oh, I got to be the marketer who's writing emails. And I wasn't spending any time as the CEO in my business. I was really good as a coach. I was really good. And people would say that, you're such a good coach. And I was like, yes, I am. And then finally in 2020, gosh, the years all blend together. 2022, I was at a mastermind. I was at James's mastermind, and someone shared that they realized that they were being a great coach and not a CEO. And when they shared that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing that too. I've identified so much as like this amazing coach. I'm not being a leader. I'm not running my business the way it needed to run. And that, like, I think that's also why we had so much growth 2021 to 2022, but 2022 to now, I finally started driving the bus, and I
Mm.
finally started being the person who was a leader for my business. And those things did not come naturally to me. Those things were the thing. I like, talk about crawling in a hole, talk about my turtle walks, talk about wanting to crawl into a shell. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to like boss people around, but my business my business is separate from me. My business has a mission. It needed someone at the front of the bus. So I was at the point where I either had to get in the driver's seat or the bus was going to crash.
Wow. Wow. I'm glad it didn't crash
Me
because
too.
we all need you. But you said something really interesting, Nicole, that there's been like a separation, I guess, for you with being a personal brand to being a company.
Hmm.
Because I always thought, being an online entrepreneur in this space, in a sense, you are a personal brand. So, what has been that shift for you from personal brand to now identifying more as a company?
So I will say that this is something I'm very much in right now. So I can't come to you as like Sarah Blakely and Spanx. You know what I mean? We have a lot more growth to do. So I'm very much in it. And I said like I'm in the process of. So I'm very much, I think people, you always will have a personal brand, right? Because I'm still going to be Nicole, but I want my business to be more known than me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I want my business to be known for its mission, for its service, for its values, and I want it to truly have its own legs. So if and when I decide like I'm not going to be so much, and I have no plans for this, but I honestly think about it in terms of like having an asset. Just like, well, if I'm everything to my business, then is that really an asset I own? Or do I need to put the people, put the systems, put the process in place? So in 10 years from now, in 20 years from now, if I want to sell my business, it's not going to be the Nicole Culver show. It's going to be elevated that has its own legs. And that really was something that we have built in the past, started building where it's such in a process, but that's what we've been working on is like, how do we get the infrastructure in place? So if we do decide, or if I need to take a break, I know so many, I don't know if you have seen this, but in the past month, the amount of CEOs I have seen walk away from their business, shut down things, shut down programs, shut down businesses, and stop because they're so burnt out because they can't, they have no, yeah, I don't, and that's really what my goal is. Very build the plane, fly the plane as you build it. I want to show other people how to do this because I do believe that you should be able to walk away from your business for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a few months to take care of what you need to take care of. If you have a family issue, if you have a health issue, and your business should still be able to run, it should not be all about you. And that, if you, I probably don't do a good enough job showing this, but truly, like, I could walk away. Would some people say, like, oh, where's Nicole? They would, but you know what? Those Tuesday pod calls, they're 100% there. The Thursday calls, they're there. The systems and processes are there. We have the customer success set up. I could walk away. And that is what I think more CEOs need to set themselves up to once they have the foundations in place. You can't do this when you don't have the systems and the revenue, but we we started our business for a level of freedom, yet we're handcuffed to it. So I don't want to be handcuffed to it. And part of me not being handcuffed to it was having to build something that was more than just me.
Mm, love that. So good. And and such an integral part of Elevate as well, isn't it? And
Mm-hmm.
I think you speak to so many things that others just don't speak to and are feeling but don't feel, and it's so important, especially I think for um, moms who are CEOs of their business and they're just not taking ownership of it, and they're feeling like they need to wear all the hats and do all of the things, and it's such a sigh of relief when we realize that we don't have to do all of the
Mm-hmm.
things, and that there is so much more possible for us when we step into the elevated
Yeah.
CEO. Yeah. Yeah. What would you say to someone out there who does want to step, like they know that they need to step into being more of the CEO, but they're struggling to do so. I'm trying to think, like, if I think back to the journey that I've had being in your program, I didn't even realize that I was not a CEO. And then I realized I needed to be one and started taking steps, I think just really naturally, just being in the program, by setting up systems. I think that was a big one. Setting up systems was
Mhm.
huge because then you start taking things off of your plate and you realize that there's so much more that you can do once you take things off your plate. What would you say would be like those first steps to owning that identity of CEO?
I think, well, there's a few different directions, but the first thing that just came up for me is like, figure out what the heck you want to do and who you want
Mm,
to help. And then I don't think that it starts like this, but because when I started, I just literally like wanted to make $100 a day and $3,000 a month. Like that literally was my goal. $3,000 a month. Let me just get to $3,000 a month. I wish I knew how long it took me to get there, because it probably was a lot longer than I anticipated. But once you're going through this, because I think a lot of people listening will have been doing this for a while, the thing that keeps me going and has always kept me going is that my mission and the people I want to help and the life I want to lead is so much bigger than just me. And that's what keeps pulling me. As long as I keep connecting to the mission that I have and the life that I want to live, I don't have to push. I can just like be pulled towards it. Now, I never talk in always, because it's not like I'm like that every single day. I still have hard weeks. And of course, every month I, go through parts that are filled with doubt or fear or whatever. But it's the reminder of the mission that keeps drawing me to it. So I think you have to at least have a calling that is bigger than you. And then as long as you check in with that calling over and over, and I think you have to be so honest with yourself, because I see a lot of women who are like, oh, well, I can't do that because I'm just a mom. I'm just this. I didn't grow up like this. I can't be a leader. Because you have to give yourself permission to be radically honest with yourself and say, what is it that I really want? Who could I help? If I knew I could do anything, what would I allow myself to do? And I think when you get clear on what that bigger purpose is for you, that is the first step. And then the second very strategic step is probably like, you're probably doing a million things that you don't need to do every single week to make money in your business. And you need to look at them as a CEO and go through like line item by line item of like, this is profitable, this is not, and stop at least until you get, I don't know, to a lot of money, probably 25,000, 50,000 a month. Like then you can start doing more things, but you have to be radically honest with where your time is going and be ruthless in that.
such great advice. Nicole, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure to speak to you on the podcast, get to know you better, hear your story. And where can people find you if they want to learn more about your program and what you do?
Instagram. So just as I said, we're separating, but you can just, my personal slash kind of still business, very much still business Instagram is just my name, Nicole Culver. We also have the Elevated CEO, and I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes because the spelling is no vowels. So it's a little bit complicated, but just Nicole Culver on Instagram is the best place.
Amazing. Yes, that will definitely be in the show notes. And you also have a podcast as well.
Yeah. Yes. The
Yeah.
shift.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much, Nicole. I really appreciate your time. And
Thank you. Thanks for
thanks
having
again.
me.